Afternoon, guys.
We're back again.
Seth Perkins.
Scott Perkins behind the camera. Today we're going to be showing you what you can do to prepare your deer in the way of skinning for dropping it off at the taxidermist for a shoulder mount.
First and foremost, I was blessed in the woods yesterday here in Ohio. I was able to harvest this buck with my Matthews bow. He came in 30 yards broadside, gave me a perfect shot. Shot him with a Rage broadhead, and he didn't go 80 yards. And I am just absolutely thrilled to have a buck like this in my hands. It's a great feeling. So, like Scott said, we want to go ahead and use this opportunity to show you how to do, to prepare your deer for caping, to take it to your taxidermist.
Right, so Seth's already got this deer. Now we talked about this in our last skinning video about the importance of getting this deer up in the air. I see really no reason why you can't get one of these gamble spreaders. They're everywhere, and you know, obviously we talked about this. We're using this electric hoist. You can do that. You can get a hoist. You can get a pulley. You can throw a rope over a tree branch. Let's go ahead and get this deer vertical, so that way it's going to make your job a lot easier if you can do that. Now this is a huge bodied deer. We did throw it on the scale. Field dress, just the way it's hanging right here, was 246 pounds. Seth's already got the back legs broke down, which we showed you in the last video, and he's got it up on the gamble.
Which, that's a very important step. Do this prior to hanging it on a gambrel.
Yeah, don't go sticking through here without first skinning those down. It's just going to make things a lot easier in the long run. This deer is cold. The last video, the deer was freshly harvested, but this one is cold. Much of the process that Seth's going to be doing on this shoulder mount buck is the same process that you do to skin any deer in the early stages. So he's going to go ahead and make a slit here on the inner thigh, which is going to make his job a lot easier whenever you're pulling like this by hand. So once again, we're going to stress the importance of when you're starting this, you want this membrane that you're going to find here to stay separated from the hide. Or what you're going to find out is you're not going to be able to pull this down. So you're going to start seeing what we call the rose meat in the meat industry. Right here, the flank. It's not really the flank, it's really the rose meat, we call it. And that's going to continue up, and it's got a bit of a membrane right here. So it's really important in these early stages. You might want to take a little extra time and get the process started right. You will be using a knife regardless to get things started. After that, you can kind of move and just hold for a moment, Seth. So here's an example where that membrane wants to stay on the hide, but we don't want that. So Seth's going to use his knife to make sure that process starts the right way. And if you don't take care here, now he's using his fist to try to roll it, here's where you're going to get yourself in trouble. So maybe don't spend too much time on any particular spot. You're going to find if he's basically winning over here and maybe losing a little bit over here. So if he kind of works from this side over, then he's going to be able to go ahead and pick that up without too much difficulty. So you see, he'll just keep working it down. He's got a little bit of time here, in a sense where he can work it down a bit before he kind of gets to a point of no return where he basically says, you know, I have to really slow down and make it happen. He's probably pretty safe right there.
It helps to do go to each side too and work them evenly.
Yeah, maybe just come pick up where you left off, and you can see once he makes that initial split there, he's able to really do quite a bit of the pulling. And you know, experience comes in here a lot with where he knows when to when to stop pulling and use the knife, or when it's okay to, you know, put some extra force into it. And really taking this extra time right off the bat is where he's going to find it's going to pay off in the long run.
And here again, we're not going for speed on this video, so.
Yeah, maybe settle in. This will probably be a 30-minute ordeal before it's all over with. But this is going to help you understand, and in the long run, it's going to make for a happy taxidermist and a successful trophy. You can't not take care of this meat or the hide and then expect your taxidermist to be able to overcome a miracle.
And this is going to be kind of a foolproof video too, because the way we're going to cape it may not be how everybody does it, but we want to show you
oh yeah,
what you know, where we get it to. The taxidermist can basically do anything he needs to with it without any harm being done to the hide.
And you have to remember, we want this to be successful in two ways. We want, obviously, that trophy to go on the wall, but we also want to process as much meat as we can off of this harvested buck. So as you see Seth's working this down, now you really start to see where that red is showing here. That's a great sign on the back, because that means that he's successfully separated that membrane, and he's going to be able to pull this down. Now here's where he uses his fist to sort of roll into the hide. There's maybe a technical term for this method, which I'm not aware of, but we can use quite a bit of hand work here. He's actually set his knife down, and he's just gonna work this down. Having done this for years, we're obviously kind of well conditioned for it. Maybe our hands don't get tired, and we don't even really know it. We realize it, but for this, it's not a real difficult process. Say we're about 50% on this deer, and we're, you know, just over 7.5 minutes in.
Definitely it makes it more difficult when the animal is chilled too. If this animal was warm, this hide would come right off.
Right, this animal was harvested yesterday morning. It's been in the cooler. It's chilled to, you know, right around 34 degrees. And that's another thing.
I won't lie, I kind of wanted to enjoy it for a little while before I took the hide off.
He may have wanted to just put a freezer with a big glass door in his living room and just put the frozen deer in there and saved him the mount.
Scott, let's talk a little bit about the brisket, where, you know, how far to cut.
Right, so as we covered in our last video, when you're field dressing, we see really no reason why you're going to want to split this brisket. And even now, somebody had pointed out about the cooling, and really about splitting here. Really, that makes no difference in our opinion, as long as you don't leave those two legs kind of sort of smashed together. Spread them apart. But for skinning purposes, we don't want to make a split anywhere towards the front of the animal. Now, some of you might say, well, you know, your mount is going to be somewhere in that front of the leg area, and that, while that may be true, there's really no reason to cut yourself close. It may make the process just a tiny bit easier if you were to split this, but it can be done. And Seth's going to work this down where he's going to actually pull this in more or less like a sock. He's going to kind of pull this off, and that's really going to set you up to be basically winning throughout this whole process when you take this mount to your taxidermist. And you know, we have to point out that the purpose of this video is to help aid you and enable you to do this at home. And we don't want you know, a taxidermist out there going, oh my, if I've got guys doing this at home and they really screw it up and they bring it to me, it causes me more work. That's certainly, you know, a possibility. So if you follow this method, I couldn't imagine a taxidermist that would look at this and say, oh, he could have, cut it down further. It's better just to stay on the safe side in the long run. Once again, Seth is, you'll see he'll grip that hide with his left hand. He is right-handed, and then he uses his fist and sort of pushes and rolls, and that pressure separates that hide. I don't believe he has a knife mark on it from, where he split those inner back legs and opened up that membrane to this point here. He may pick up his knife here and there just to, if he sees a little part of that, because that membrane is going to want to, there's a few cases where it's going to want to do some funky things. And once you get down here, you are going to have to pick up your knife, and that brisket is where things get really, really tough. And you want to start working down here. Now, I wouldn't say that you're in a critical zone for a hole. And obviously, a taxidermist, you would never even know unless you really botched it. But the effort here is, you want to prepare this so that when you pass it off, there's not only is there no extra work for the taxidermist to do, but you've got a really clean, wholesome carcass at home to process. And then, unless you're going to go ahead and mount this yourself, you're going to need to take it to a taxidermist, and you want the cape to be in the best possible condition that you can deliver it in.
Usually right around this brisket area, you do need to give it just a little help.
So as Seth try to get in here a little bit closer, he just, and like I said, experience does play a big role. We try to understand that. There's a lot happening here that we don't even realize we learned or picked up over the years, having done this so many times. But the idea here is, when you do it at home, as mentioned, get this deer hanging up. And then another thing too is help yourself out with some lighting. Even if you're setting up a couple of shop lights, or grab a headlamp, throw it on. We're well lit here, and that makes things really nice, but you definitely want to be able to see what you're doing.
Just remember too to always keep your hand that you're using to push nice and clean.
Right, Seth pointed that out in the last video. He's right-handed, so he's always going to be kind of gripping underneath that hide and grabbing a handful with his left hand and keeping his right hand sort of free of hair or dirt or whatever else. Now here's where he's going to work this around, and he's actually, I just saw a bit of an opening here, but he's got an opening already where that leg is, and here he's going to kind of sink his butt into it. And this is really a hard thing to do on a mature deer. And a cold one. Probably going to wind up using his knife for a good portion of this. On a doe or something, you can kind of just sit into that hide and it'll zip right off of there. And like I said, we're trying to consider the fact that we've been doing this for a long time, since we were kids, and Seth's a big guy, and he's maybe got a little more muscle or power than some of you might have at home, but that's where you'll just have to do a little bit more knife work if that's the case. And you'll have to take note that it's a beautiful looking carcass. Without even really being an expert, you could look at this and say, this is telling me just by appearance that this is really well taken care of up to this point. There's no there's nothing that's off-putting about looking at that. It looks like something you'd want to eat. Any water on this carcass, Seth?
I haven't used any water yet.
Okay. So that's another thing. I think it's probably a good time to point that out. We've seen these deer when hung vertically. And I understand you may need to use ice and things like that. I mean, like I said, taking for granted that we have a cooler here. If you hang this deer and you put a bunch of ice in there, all that water is going to wind up right in its face. I'm sure a taxidermist or two has seen that. I guess in that case, maybe it'd be better if you were to skin this deer out pretty quickly after harvest. But because this carcass is not seeing water, he didn't spray it out, he didn't have to really, because of the proper field dressing job. And we didn't put in, or you didn't really have to hold it and put ice into it. It does make it a lot easier to work. It's sort of like this dry, it's not slimy. If things get wet and slimy, it's going to be really hard to hang on to them and pull that hide down. So just keep that in mind. If you're colder, then if you're in that 50 degree or even, if you start getting 40 degrees, you're in a really prime range to just go ahead and hang that animal without the use of ice, especially if you feel gutted it pretty quickly and things are cooled down. And like I mentioned before, don't leave those back legs smashed together. Don't leave that deer laying on its side with both of those legs smashed together, because what's going to happen is between those two inner thighs, I guess you would call them, it's going to spoil. The heat won't get out of there quickly enough. So Seth's he's got to use his knife now. You just have to be Iron Man to be able to pull this thing at this point. So what he's doing is using his left hand just to apply some downward pressure, and then he's using his knife to just work this around sort of in a circle. Now our hoist does spin, so maybe that helps a bit, but he's gonna just work this around. And you notice that this deer, he's working on it, and he's got it probably just a little bit above chest level. Once again, getting things up where you can work on them, where you have plenty of lighting, makes a huge difference. There is a bit of separation here between the professionals and the amateurs, just with some of the equipment that you may have access to, but it doesn't mean that you can't replicate this pretty easily in your environment and without really get into a bunch of high costs. And you can literally kind of get a pulley and a gamble and a rope, and I don't know, maybe tie it off to your vehicle or something and pull ahead a few feet if you wanted to lift it up, and so on and so forth. But the main thing is just I would say sort of go slow. So that's not necessarily going slow, but as you're working this down through here, just use an approach, maybe more of a systematic approach. Don't get fixated on one spot too long.
You have to continually work around the animal, because it'll bind on one side and loosen on the other, so you have to keep it even.
So one of the questions, and I'll just touch on this, was how you keep your knives sharp. We do use whetstones here. We do not have like a automatic knife sharpener or whatever. We stone our knives. That process is done on basically a weekly basis. So while Seth's skinning this deer, have you steeled your knife at all?
No.
Okay. He has not yet felt the need to steel his knife. So what we're going to do, if we're skinning and we feel like our knife maybe isn't holding up, the only thing that we're going to do, and I'll just show you, is we'll use this is a 10-inch steel, I believe, maybe 12-inch, probably 10-inch. This is a fine steel. You can get these in different finishes. Some are coarse, some have both coarse and fine on them. And that's really what you do. What happens is your knife edge, it will get sort of bent over like that, and that steel will straighten it back out. But you really, if your knife starts out nice and sharp, you don't have to do a whole lot of messing around with it throughout the process.
Now, I'm sure some taxidermists would go ahead and take this all the way down to the actual neck joint. However, with in our experience, we like to kind of leave a little bit of the neck intact. We understand that you're going to lose, just a little bit of meat. It'll make your dog happy when you get home. But in order to get a real good neck measurement, we like to go ahead and leave just a few inches of that neck meat on there, so when you get it to your taxidermist, he can throw an official tape on it and get the correct foam mount ordered for your deer. I did go ahead and measure this one with a string, and it was right at 29.5. So these deer are just getting ready to start rutting here in Ohio.
That's a good point. You can, if you were wanting to be double sure, you could get a piece of twine or string or something and stretch it all the way around there, and then actually cut it to the exact measurement of the neck, or obviously use like a sewing tape or something. So that's going to use a saw to go ahead and remove this. You can do it with a knife. It's not a super difficult process to get that, but it's not a whole lot of fun either to try to get your knife through the way those vertebrae link together. So definitely, if you've got a Sawzall will do the trick. Just about any saw, there's not a lot of bone to go through. Don't get caught up too much on, I don't have a bone saw or something. You can, as long as it's got teeth that are sort of fine, don't get like some gnarly looking tree saw. But so that buck looks. And the fun thing about getting that head off there is you start to visualize what your mount is going to look like. This is a really nice Ohio whitetail. Seth spent quite a bit of time this summer putting out his food plot, getting things ready, and it paid off in a big way for him.
So as you can see here, that hide is all fully intact. The last cut I made was right here. Everything else is all intact. So
what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pass this off to our taxidermist as is, and let him make the choice on actually where he's going to cut this hide, and he'll complete the process with removing the hide from the actual skull. Great looking deer. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll try to answer as many comments as we can, especially the early ones. And so if you want a question answered, go ahead and leave a comment. We do plan on getting a few more videos out to you guys this year. We'll definitely get that field dressing video. We'll get the we're going to do a further processing video as well, so look for that in the near future. We'll be doing some sausage, bratwurst, smoked meats, that sort of thing, with our seasonings included in it.
So if you live in a state that requires a tag on your deer, just remember, you have to put a tag on the carcass, go into a meat processor, and a tag on the hide or the antlers, go into the taxidermist. If you show up to the taxidermist, you don't have this, you're going to turn around and go home and get it. So here in Ohio, we have to put a tag on them, and we've had a very blessed year so far. We really appreciate all you guys watching. Hopefully you enjoy. We'll see you in the woods.